Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zozimini Tunzi, Miss Universe, and I'm so pleased to be here today as the Master of Ceremony on this high-level intergenerational dialogue on Beijing Plus 25 Young Women Manifesto, hosted by the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy with the support partners and stakeholders, namely the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, the Global Partnership for Education, There Is No Limit Foundation, and the Wallace Global Fund. Now, it is definitely not a casualty that this dialogue has been organized to happen on this particular day, because this day marks the International Day on the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Now, this year, as we all know, the rights of women and girls has been further threatened by this current pandemic. However, as discussed by the African youth on the Beijing Plus 25 regional consultation and Barazas rolled out last October, the young people in the continent have been responding very positively and championing women's rights despite our current challenges. Now, these challenges, as well as the solutions, have been duly documented, and this dialogue serves as an opportunity to present the Africa Young Women Manifesto resulting from the discussions on gender-based violence, economic justice and rights, technology and innovation for gender equality, youth silencing the guns, amongst other issues. And today, the Africa Union Youth Envoy, Ms. Eyachevi, will present the outcomes of this enriching discussion, and we will have the honor and opportunity to hear from senior and youth leaders on the future of feminism, gender equality, and leadership. The leaders participating will also endorse this manifesto and present their commitments and champion these 10 demands. We will be here together for the next 2 hours. We will be starting with an opening ceremony, followed by an intergenerational panel. Then we will have a closing ceremony. Now, it is our utmost honor to have with us Her Excellency, Vice President of South Sudan, Her Excellency, First Lady of Rwanda, Her Excellency, Madame Thulston Abdullahi, Honorable Minister of Women, Children and Youth, Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Special Representative of the Secretary General to the African Union, founder of Aswat Nisa, UN Women Executive Director and African Union Special Envoy on the Women, Peace and Security, among other speakers. Now, as all protocols remain observed, Excellencies, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the high-level Beijing Plus 25 Intergenerational Dialogue, and I invite all of the guests and participants to interact through social media using the hashtags #AfricaYouthLead. You can also add on hashtag Generation Equality and hashtag 16 Days as we are embarking on this journey of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Despite the challenges in hosting this dialogue virtually, inclusivity is a foundation for the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy, and so to leave no one behind, as such, we would like to remind everyone that translation is available in Arabic, French, Portuguese, and English. And of course, it is complemented by the sign language interpretation. I would like now to give the honor to our convener and the organizer of this intergenerational dialogue, the incredible Ms. Eyachevi, African Union Special Envoy on Youth, for her welcome remarks. Eya, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you hosting this intergenerational dialogue. His Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, represented by Ambassador Abdoulaye Diop, His Excellency, the Excellency Vice President of Republic of South Sudan, Excellency First Lady of Republic of Rwanda, Minister of Women, Children and Youth of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Special Representative of UN Secretary General to the AU, Chief Executive Officer of CIF, ambassadors, UN agency representatives and African Union Commission representatives, civil society representatives, partners and young people. All protocols are duly observed, and please allow me to begin by thanking the Chairperson, His Excellency Moussa Faki, for championing the young women agenda on the continent. Without the chairperson's support, we wouldn't be able to organize 100 intergenerational dialogues the past 2 years during my mandate as his youth which she entrusted me to deliver on and gave me the opportunity to innovate and mobilize. I want to also thank Her Excellency Vice President of South Sudan, Mama Rebecca, as South Sudanese youth call you. I was in South Sudan just a few weeks ago, and it was an absolute pleasure to see your leadership on the cluster of women and youth. I will also thank sincerely the First Lady of Republic of Rwanda. I know despite your tight schedule, you honored our invitation to inspire young women, so thank you. I want to also recognize Honorable Minister of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia in uplifting women leadership and the opportunity to brief on our Silencing the Guns Youth Report to the AU Peace and Security Council during this month, which is Africa Youth Month, under the leadership of Ethiopia. Also, the Minister of Gender of Tunisia apologized. She couldn't be with us, but she sends her support. Minister of Gender of Burkina Faso also sends support, and a representative on the panel. I want to thank partners. This would have not been possible without your support, even though this is virtual, but resources are needed to make things happen. So thank you. Children Investment Fund Foundation, Global Partnership for Education, There Is No Limit Foundation, and the WELAS Global Funds. Thank you also to the Gender Directorate. Victoria, thank you for your continuous guidance. Thank you to UN Women Africa Regional Offices for the support. And thank you to my team, which haven't slept for a few weeks now to pull this off. And I want to also thank you again, Zosie. I believe that female voice is strong in every industry. It is a powerful one, so thank you for being part of this. Excellencies, welcome to the high-level intergenerational dialogue. We are here today because young women of Africa feel excluded, feel discriminated against. It is unclear to them where do they belong. They go to the women movement and they feel excluded because of the generation gap, because they're trying to redefine feminism for our generation. They go to the youth movement and they feel excluded because it's a male-dominated space. So they were excited and hopeful at the arrival of youth peace and security and women peace and security agendas, which both promise to protect and respect the rights of youth and women. However, the dilemma has now become, what is the promise for young women in these resolutions? What are the rights of young women guaranteed in these resolutions? And for this reason, we believe it was paramount to create a platform specifically for Africa young women in which this dynamic demographic can express themselves freely and in depth about their specific challenges and solutions. We wanted to leverage on the critical moment of Beijing +25 process to also make our mark as young women in the decade of action. So in the month of October, we launched the Africa Young Women Beijing +25 mobilization to galvanize the voice of young women who are pained, fighting every day for their progress, their agency, and in many cases, even their lives, especially in COVID-19 pandemic. And we had, despite those challenges, participants from refugee, displaced, and rural youth. And even we had young men actively participating in the discussion. And so the demands I'm going to present to you today come from over 1,500 young people from 45 countries across the continent that convened in these 5 regional dialogues of Africa, in the 5 regions of Africa. And we focused on group discussions on the themes of Action Coalition. So I'm proud to present the Africa Young Women Beijing +25 Manifesto with 10 concrete demands. One is economic justice. Young women demand equality in employment, jobs with dignity, paid work, paid internships, and paid maternity leave without discrimination. 2, the criminalization of the epidemic of gender-based violence in all its forms, including femicide, rape, female genital mutilation, early and forced marriage, sexual, domestic, and economic abuse, trafficking, and other forms of exploitation. 3, end gender discrimination, especially for rural young women with disability, young women seeking asylum, young women refugees and displaced, young women migrants, and all those in vulnerable settings. 4, access to justice and protection, especially making sure that equality is before the law as a priority. 5, universal access to essential sexual and reproductive health rights and services, including the removal of taxation on menstrual products. Our reproductive health is not an embarrassment, a distraction, or a reason to discriminate. 6, mental health and well-being. Young women demand mental health services that understand the impact of daily sexism, misogyny, and discrimination impact on young women. 7, inclusive, equitable, and quality education. Young women demand an increase in national budgets for education and decrease that of militarization. They ask to educate the boys to respect girls and treat them as equals. 8, digital justice. This is important for our generation. Young women demand the democratization of digital space. Many girls are out of the digital revolution, and they also demand protection from cyber harassment, threats, and sexist language occurring as an attempt to silence young women's voices and deny their rights to participate in political discourse. 8 or 9, silencing the guns. We cannot silence the guns in Africa without participation of young women in peace-building efforts, in mediation, in negotiation. They demand the protection of their rights and accountability during armed conflict, because young women do not produce, sell, or buy guns. So why do they have to pay the price of warlords? 10, and finally, intergenerational co-leadership. The youth quotas and gender parity are unclear about young women's space and contribution. So young women demand political participation at all levels of decision-making. These demands, Your Excellency, need to be acted upon concretely and not merely discussed. So for each of these demands, Africa young women make a strong case for financing and fund allocation to support the innovation, the implementation, to move from words to action and from promises to actual progress. So as we commemorate today the International Day on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, this dialogue would allow us to commit, seriously commit the young women agenda and support their united voice in this first of its kind Beijing +25 manifesto. So we urge you to endorse this manifesto, to commit to the demands within your leadership. Wherever you are, you can make a difference, to amplify, to advocate, to deliver on them. Everyone has a role to play in ensuring our rights and freedom as young women are fulfilled, and we don't have to wait 108 years to enjoy gender equality. We actually cannot afford to wait long to enjoy the benefits that young women bring to the table and bring to the development of Africa. It's our future at stake, but we can accelerate progress when we collaborate together across, joining your wisdom and experience and even lessons from your failures with our innovation, boldness, and imagination of Africa we want. We can make it happen. Thank you.
Aya, I absolutely agree with you 100%. We do not have 108 years to wait for generation equality. We want it today. We want it now. Thank you so much for presenting the Africa Young Women Manifesto and for highlighting the key findings and outcomes, as well as the bold demands from young women, including their active participation, inclusion in the generation equality forums and action coalitions process. As you heard, you can now go to the youth-envoy.org/manifesto to sign up your name to the African Young Women Manifesto and to show your support and really for young women's demands leading up to the Generation Equality Forums. We are now looking at over 300, I think, addition of people and participants watching on social media. So thank you so much for joining in. Aya, once again, thank you for bringing us together in this key dialogue with decision makers, the leaders, and the youth. And I'm a firm believer in intergenerational platforms. So I look forward to the interactions of the leaders to this bold manifesto and especially the endorsements of this agenda. I'm now pleased to now give the floor to Ms. Kate Hampton, Chief Executive Officer of the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. Ms. Kate Hampton, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And it was a real pleasure this morning to read the manifesto that Ayachevi's just outlined. And I undertake to carry it with me into Generation Equality Forum and all the work that we do. Your Excellencies, Honourable Commissioners and friends, it's such a pleasure to be here today, I can't tell you, for this intergenerational dialogue. And aptly taking place, as has already been said, on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. So at the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, we believe in pushing power into the future. And by this, we mean that young people need to be able to make the best decision for their lives and well-being and have all the tools they need at their disposal to create a just and sustainable world for themselves and future generations. And in particular, we think it's important to amplify the voices of girls and young women as change makers. The world is a much better place when the voices of young women and girls are held and heard and held in respect. Sometimes I wish they were running the place, given the mistakes that are being made by many. But at the very least, the lived experience of girls and young women is something that should be heard and respected as we go into the Generation Equality Forum. Girls suffer disproportionately from many of the world's current challenges, and indeed COVID has put this into sharp relief. I don't need to tell all of you. And we know, as IGD was saying, that if we put girls and women at the center of development, that has huge benefits, not just for their families and communities, but for entire countries. We know that girls and women spend more of their earned income on their families. We know that they take very seriously issues of public health and environmental protection. But putting girls at the center means that we need to tackle harmful social norms that prevent them from exercising their power and agency. And it's truly this systemic work that we think is crucial to support. And we're trying to do that in all the work that we do at the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. Most of the illnesses and problems and barriers that are faced by children are connected to the status of their mothers. So not only is this of value to support young women and girls themselves, but it will also have huge impact for their children. So we're really proud to be partnering with the AU and Youth Envoy and support the voices of African young people. And what a great manifesto it is. I'm really excited to support it. And as one of the co-leads of the Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights and Bodily Autonomy Action Coalition within the Generation Equality Forum, I'll take personal accountability for ensuring that you see your manifesto demands reflected in that work. So we think the Generation Equality Forum is going to give us a really good opportunity to catalyse new, bold and tangible commitments. We need to strengthen our champions and trailblazers and encourage the slower adopters. And we need to break down siloed approaches. I think you see the word comprehensive reflected many times in the manifesto. And it's so important that we don't see gender equality as a menu or sexual reproductive health and rights as a menu. It's a package, and all of these things reinforce each other. So we must have a comprehensive approach. And CIV commits to working with youth across Africa and other parts of the world to make sure that the voices of girls and young women are reflected in the new gender equality blueprint, and that we enable those voices to increase the political saliency and the priority of implementation around these issues. In every so-called young country, young women are going to make up at least 5% of the first-time voters for the next generation or more. And that could be the difference between victory and defeat at the ballot box. So politicians need to get educated about the aspirations and requests of this generation. And I personally am not just listening, I'm also deeply inspired. So I want to thank you all for this wonderful opportunity to join you today. And I'll do my best to take your manifesto forward. Thank you very much, I and everyone else.
Thank you so much to Ms. Kate Hampton. Your insights, and your support and your vision for African young women is incredible, and we are thankful so much for it. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have Madame Filson Abdullahi, the Minister of Women, Children and Youth for the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, but she is not with us today as she has a current meeting that she's in. But however, she does send her regards and her apologies. And we will now be moving on to the we'll now be moving on to Ambassador Diop on behalf of His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the African Union for the Goodwill Message. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks a lot, Madam Mistress of Ceremony. very honored and pleased to meet so many powerful and great ladies of the continent. My name is Abdoulaye Diop. I'm the Chief of Staff of the African Union Commission. Chairperson Musa Faki Mahamad, who would have liked to join you for this session, have been taken for other engagements which were unforeseen. So he tasked me to be in your midst and to deliver the following message, which I hope you will allow me to do so. Your Excellency, Vice President of the Republic of South Sudan, Your Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Rwanda, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chief Children Investment Fund Foundation, Ms. Aya Shebi, our Youth Envoy, all other distinguished representatives from respective countries and organizations around the continent and beyond, all protocol observes. As we commemorate the International Day of the Elimination of the Violence Against Women, this intergenerational dialogue creates the platform to focus on young women in Africa. It provides us an opportunity to reflect on the remarkable progress we've made, but also to gauge the extent to which women's rights are still yet to be fully achieved and protected. I thank the Office of the Youth Envoy, Aya Shebi, the AU departments, including the Department on Gender and Women Development, all departments and partners involved in this initiative. The African Union commends the leadership of countries that have mainstreamed and represented African women positioned to achieve full equality in the Beijing +21 process. Their leadership complements the engagement of African women in the past 3 decades. This year is important for the advancement and emancipation of women. It marks the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action, and also the 20th anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. This year, the African Union has mainstreamed and reaffirmed women's role in peace and security as part of its commitment to silencing the guns in Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the current health pandemic has been a wake-up call for all of us to strengthen our efforts to achieve even more social justice. This is strengthened by the adoption of the Continental Framework on Youth, Peace and Security, adopted by AU Peace and Security Council in June this year, and in the recent briefing of the open session of Youth, Peace and Security. The Commission has shown through Youth Silencing the Gun campaign the role and contribution of young people in overcoming these challenges during the pandemic. The challenges raised by the 25 stories of young women in Africa and in the diaspora, and also in the Saudi blog and publication launched by the African Union in July are many. They include gender-based violence, unemployment, school disruptions, harmful practices such as child marriage and female genital mutilation, and other barriers hindering the inclusion in the leadership, but also in the governance system in many countries. However, throughout this initiative mentioned earlier, we have learned that young people are resilient and they tackle their challenges with creativity and innovation. This is the case of the remarkable work of the African Youth Front on coronavirus, working closely with the Commissioner for Social Affairs at the African Union, but also with the Africa CDC to ensure outreach of a community in the prevention and sensitization to stop the spread of COVID-19 and protecting lives and livelihoods. We have the responsibility as an international community, and most importantly, as an African community, to protect girls and young women from economic exploitations and from performing work that is hazardous, take them away from education, and that is also harmful to their mental and physical health. Through the special envoy, Ms. Shebi, we have reached the constituency of over 48 million youth through meaningful engagement and intergenerational dialogue, especially young women and girls, but there is more to be done. The African Youth Women Manifesto that was briefly presented by Ms. Shebi, and we showcased the attention and practicality on how this generation of young women are affected, discriminated on the basis of age, sex, and social, cultural circumstances. They have been clear with their demand, which also have been highlighted by Aya. They want economic empowerment, access to justice and protection, an end to all forms of gender-based violence. They need support for their mental health and well-being. They ask for access to an inclusive and equitable education. They need digital transformation to innovate. And they want to contribute to peace building, mediation, and AU flagship project of silencing the guns, because they want a continent free from violence and conflict. They also call for intergenerational co-leadership and their legitimate place in the leadership. The African Union therefore congratulates the young women of Africa for uniting their voices and putting forward their demand that cannot be ignored anymore. This manifesto comes timely with the new African Decade on Financial and Economic Inclusion, which was adopted at the last summit of the African Union Head of State and Government. This reaffirmed the commitment of the African leadership to scale up actions for progressive inclusion towards sustainable development at national, regional, and continental level. So I want to end the message here from Chairperson Moussa Faki, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, on behalf of His Excellency, Mr. Moussa Faki Mohammed, who has great commitment towards young people and young African women for the achievement of a prosperous and integrated continent. Before proceeding with the opening keynote, please kindly allow me to remind you that there's a translation in Arabic, French, and English, and Portuguese, as well as a sign language interpretation. We also invite you to keep the chats going and engaging on social media using the hashtag #AfricanYouthLead on social media, and don't forget to tag us at AU Youth Envoy accounts across all platforms. We will now be watching the short video on the 100 intergenerational dialogues that the Office of the Youth Envoy concluded with today's event, and how intergenerational co-leadership is now the new cool. And we will be right back.
So as part of our action plan, we try every time to organize intergenerational dialogues, whether we go on missions or separate programs at national, regional level. And today I was really excited about this intergenerational dialogue in South Sudan that we managed to do for about 3 hours. Young people really being bold and vocal and raising very critical questions and challenges they're facing, and also challenging the leadership, and that's the idea of the dialogue.
Today's been quite helpful because it's been an eye-opener. Personally, for one, I almost lost hope on issues of peace. But now that from today's discussion, I picked that I myself as an individual, or I myself as a South Sudanese, I do have a role I need to play as a youth, and above all as a girl child.
Intergenerational dialogue is really important because it allows younger leaders to learn from their elders.
More young people are learning from the older generation and co-leading change.
And please try us because we want to co-lead with you.
This is your time. This more than ever, this is your time.
Prenez votre responsabilité, n'ayez pas peur.
Pour le bien de la paix et de la sécurité dans notre continent.
Et c'est ensemble que nous allons, relativement anciens et les jeunes, nous allons changer les choses sur le continent.
For me, the intergenerational discussion should continue.
I am calling upon leaders to support intergenerational co-leadership.
Co-leadership leads to co-production of policies. And when you co-produce policies with the youth, who are the majority, then implementation is easier.
We know that if we engage you more, we will have better results.
As one of our very first steps towards actually walking the talk.
So, the rest is up to you. Be part of it.
That is the way forward for the African we want.
فلدينا معدل أعمار القارة 25
طبعا.
ومعدل أعمار صناع القرار 66 سنة. فيعني الفارق كبير، وذلك فارق في فهم المشكل وفارق في إيجاد الحل للمشكل.
We recognize the struggle, and without you, the previous generation, we wouldn't exist. You paved the way for many of us, but we also have our own battle now, and we need you to support us. The previous generation is trying to give us a torch to continue, but we don't want to inherit systems that we didn't co-design. We need to collaborate right now and co-lead, so when we are in that space, we can do a better job than you know?
I think after that wonderful and very powerful statement by Aya, we all in this room need to move with speed before we all lose our jobs, because it looks quite clear that the future is here.
Please keep shaking things up.
Let's shake things up.
Let's also shaking things up.
Let's shake
things up.
Let's shake things up. Yes!
Let's shake things up!
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to now invite Her Excellency, Mrs. Jeannette Nyiramongi Kagame, the First Lady of the Republic of Rwanda, to provide an opening keynote that we have all been waiting for. Her Excellency, welcome and thank you so much for gracing this event.
Thank you, Zosie. Excellencies, Ambassador Diop, Chief of Staff of the African Union, Ms. Rebecca Nyadeng Damabior, the Vice President of South Sudan, Ms. Kate Hampton, Chief Executive Officer, Children Investment Foundation, Ms. of course, Aya Chebi, African Union Commission Envoy on Youth, distinguished speakers, dear youth of Africa gathered here today. What an honor it is for me to join you at this high-level Beijing Plus 25 intergenerational dialogue and for the presentation of the Africa Young Women Manifesto. Today's event could not be more significant, as it not only commemorates the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, but it also takes place during the Africa Youth Month. I commend the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy for bringing together innovative and brilliant minds unbound by age, and for producing this manifesto. The 10 demands spelled out in this unmistakable affirmation on the part of African young women to secure a real change highlights the universal principles of equality and non-discrimination, and should be clearly integrated within our society and our communities. We can no longer ignore the existing gaps to improve the health and socioeconomic indicators of our continent, gaps that the meaningful engagement of our promising young minds towards contributing to all political, social, and economic processes. Distinguished guests, critical areas of concern that put African young women and girls at a disadvantage continue to be linked to poverty, inequality of economic opportunity, as well as exclusion from decision-making. It is disheartening to observe that deep-seated negative traditional and cultural practices, including negative social norms, still persist to this day in some of our countries. A recent UN study found out that half of the world's men and women feel that men make better political leaders and that men have more rights to a job when jobs are scarce, while over 40% feel that men make better business executives. And in the 13 countries included in this study in Africa, the level of bias is even higher. As a mother and grandmother young at heart, I feel you. I feel that this dialogue today is not only timely, it is essential. We need inspiration from you, the youth, to dismantle these detrimental beliefs and norms. And we must also challenge the fact that gender equality is yet to be achieved. Why should we, in 2020, which marks the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, continue to accept that the fact that globally women aged between 25 and 34 are 25% likely than men to live in extreme poverty, that men still control more than 3/4 of seats in parliament around the world, and that girls and women continue to be subjected to female genital mutilation. It is our collective responsibility to provide a pathway conducive for women and girls to achieve their full potential on an equal footing. In the last 25 years, my country, Rwanda, has made a deliberate choice to promote gender equality and women's empowerment as an essential condition for attaining sustainable development. Spearheaded by a sustained political will at the highest leadership level, gender equality and women's empowerment has been the driving force for Rwanda's vision and transformative agenda. A strong and comprehensive legal and policy framework was set up, in addition to relevant legal reforms. The constitutional guarantee of a minimum quota of 30% of women's representation in all decision-making organs has resulted in women holding 50% of cabinet positions, 60% are parliamentarians in the lower chamber, and 38% in the Senate. These concerted efforts have in turn influenced the design and implementation of policies, laws, and programs in all sectors to become more gender responsive. In addition, the institutionalization of gender responsive budgeting has enabled us to ensure that public institutions, especially, use public resources in a manner that benefits men, women, boys, and girls equally. Young ladies and young gentlemen, this year, our continent has not been spared from the unprecedented global health emergency brought about by COVID-19. I want at this juncture to congratulate the Office of the Youth Envoy and the African Youth Front on Coronavirus for their tireless work during 2020 to produce the Africa Youth Lead policy paper, a recovery roadmap on COVID-19. This paper highlights the key challenges our young people are facing on the continent, which have been aggravated by the virus. It also outlines recommendations formulated by them as a pathway to achieving a better Africa. Dialogue such as this one today provides the opportunity to draw inspiration on how to review and rethink our strategies. For example, before the pandemic, youth were at the forefront of advocating for jobs, for universal health care, for gender equality, and for intergenerational co-leadership. But the COVID pandemic has emphasized the extent of inequality and injustice in our societies, and in some cases has even deepened them. Through Rwanda's experience, we have learned that you have what it takes to accelerate the advancement of gender equality. And it's our obligation as parents, elders, and stakeholders to provide you with the platforms and support to play your crucial role in voicing your opinions and ideas. At continental level, the African Union, under the leadership of His Excellency Mustafa Mahamat, has placed gender and youth issues at the heart of its priorities, thus allowing you room to trace your future and challenge social norms that influence gender progress in each of your countries by fully participating in national development. In Rwanda's case, the National Strategy for Transformation has integrated as one of its critical components a national skills development and employment promotion strategy. And it has mandated the Rwanda Development Board to provide effective oversight and coordination in the skills development and employment promotion of our young population, with a view to promote capacity development strategies and action to respond to public and private sector needs, thus addressing the issue of youth unemployment. In addition, through our youth mainstreaming public policy, youth participation is promoted and has been essential to our success. Almost 45% of public servants are under the age of 35, and 79% are under the age of 45. In addition, 38% of public servants under the age of 30 are young women. Young leaders of tomorrow, we are conscious that more than ever we need your voices, your expertise, and innovative minds. We need you to advocate and promote financing for response and prevention initiatives, to leverage available technology, and to continue and initiate new dialogues as means to educate, shift mindsets, and disseminate potentially life-saving information, including relevant laws and rights. You are the backbone of our continent. We are here to close the gap, and your demands shall be our commands. Je vous souhaite tous une très bonne continuation.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency, for your commitment, and we really do compliment the remarkable achievement of the government of Rwanda in promoting gender equality and youth inclusion and leadership. Thank you so much. And once again, I want to thank everyone who's joined us today from our Zoom and our live stream. And I'm so pleased right now to hand over to Mrs. Nyaradai Gumbonzanda, African Union Goodwill Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage, who will be moderating the Intergenerational Dialogue Panel on the Future of Feminism, Gender Equality and Leadership. Mrs. Nyaradai, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Zosie, and you look beautiful. And I just love those African earrings and the African outfits. I mean, it's a day to celebrate Africa, and not only the tough issues, but to celebrate who we are. Thank you so much for being our chief moderator, and congratulations. I am connected with you all from my village in Zimbabwe. Over 100 kilometers away from the capital city. And I just am so grateful to be invited to moderate this intergenerational dialogue, both in my capacity as the African Union Goodwill Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage and also running Rosaria Memorial Trust. I've been agonizing because what we call marriage is simply violence against girls. It's violence against women. So I really appreciate you inviting me today on the first day for us to reflect on this point. The Honorable Your Excellency, the Vice President of South Sudan, a sister I've known for many years, Madam Rebecca Nyadeng Dimabior. It's such a pleasure to have you on the program today. Your Excellency, the First Lady of Rwanda, Madam Janet Kagame, thank you so much. And your commitment over the years when you even started WAFLA, you were there, and today you are here, and Rwanda continues to be trailblazing. So thank you so much for that powerful keynote. The honorable ministers present, the government officials present, thank you for the member states' commitment to what you do and who you are. Mr. Ambassador Abdoulaye Diop, representing our AU chair of the commission, thank you so much for being here and for that powerful message. Thank you to Your Excellency, my sister, my daughter, Aya Kebi. Aya, you are a powerhouse. We love you. And thank you for your leadership as your special envoy. You bring that energy into the center of decision-making of the African Union. We are very proud of you, my sister, Madam Binta Diop. Thank you. And Victoria Maloka, we can't do without gender and mainstreaming of equality at the center of the work that we do. The UN colleagues who are present, I know that on this panel I have my sister, Ambassador Hannah Tete. We are going to go into deep discussion. Thank you for being here, and all other UN colleagues and other development partners. Great to hear from you, Kate Hampton, who have been following the work of the Children Investment Fund Foundation for many years. And thank you for that great message and GPE. Mine is to moderate a session. Mine is to moderate an intergenerational discussion on this very special day. I just wanted to reflect on 4 key points. When we say intergenerational, what are we bringing to the table? We are bringing people, leaders, communities of different age groups. So it's very important because the question of inclusion by age continues to be the conversation. So in this panel, we are a wide range by age, but we are also bringing to the table the issues affecting us by age. So it's not just who is young, but the issues affecting us in the identity of who we are and the perspectives that we bring. So it's not just the issues, but it's also the perspective and the solutions defined by the dimensions of age and gender and context are important, but also the solutions. What are those solutions? At times, the solutions that I have as an old professional lawyer is very different from the solutions that a young lawyer might have. So the solutions for issues we are confronting today, but also the issues as we build for tomorrow. So we are having this intergenerational conversation in a context which we know we have COVID-19, and we know that the continent, our continental commitments have definitely said no to violence against women, and we are looking forward to the work around the protocol on violence against women. So in my panel, the panel that we have for this session, I'm very, very excited to introduce the panel. The panel will have 4 key panelists, and then we'll also have audience participation. We are very excited to have on our panel the participation of the United Nations Special Representative to the African Union, Madam Hannah Tete would be our first panelist, and we are very, very excited to have her with us. Our second panelist is Madam Marie-Madeleine Ouedraogo, Director for the Promotion of Gender at the Ministry of Women, National Solidarity, Family and Humanitarian Action from the Republic of Burkina Faso. So we are very excited to have Madam Marie with us. We then have 2 amazing young leaders to be part of who are panelists today. Ms. Ikram Said, founder of Aswat Nisa, and we also have Mr. Mohamed Sidibé, who is with the Global Partnership for Education and a youth champion, and we'll also be getting other participants as we go along. So just for us to immediately maximize on time. And I want to come to you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Hannah Tete, our Special Representative of the UN to the African Union. Definitely 2020, as we have heard, is special. It's pivotal. Not only are we talking of the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for the Action. Actually, I went to Beijing and I was breastfeeding. So today is very special as well. So 25 years of the Beijing commitments, but also Security Council Resolution 1325. It's a milestone year for us. Can you share with us, can you share with the panel, with the participants, what is the progress up to date on protection and participation of young women? We want the progress around protection and participation, if you can share with us, especially in conflict settings. And what are the actions that needs to be taken to foster youth engagement? Over to you, Ambassador Tete.
Thank you very much, my sister. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you. For me, it's afternoon, whatever time of the day it is for you, to participate in this panel discussion. And Dr. Nyaradra, I think that if we are going to be honest with ourselves, we will find that the participation of young women in peace-building processes, quite frankly, has left quite a bit to be desired. I have been in a number of discussions where I have had young women like Aya and other young women who right now are at the forefront of pushing the whole theme of gender equality, complaining that whenever we're having discussions, especially when we're having peace negotiations, very often their voices are not exactly prioritized. And it's almost as if they have to get a word in edgewise. So I think I'd rather like to focus the discussion this way. Over 25 years, what Beijing did is that it created a concentration around the challenges that affect women and gender equality. 20 years ago, there was the Security Council Resolution 1325, which also drew attention and essentially created the foundation for women to participate in peace building. But that notwithstanding, we have not been able to sufficiently implement the instruments that we have across the continent to be able to make that participation meaningful. And I think that what we need to do, and perhaps the utility of a platform like this, is to ask ourselves, what are the key actions that we can take to significantly make a difference? And how can we make sure that we don't just continue to pay lip service and it doesn't become a fringe issue, it becomes mainstreamed? Because we've talked about gender mainstreaming for decades, but I think that we would all agree that creating a portfolio of a minister for women's affairs in a government, and therefore having nominally a woman in cabinet or a woman sitting when these discussions take place, is not equivalent to gender mainstreaming. At best, it creates an entry point, but it is not at all what we are looking for when we are talking about equality. When we're talking about equality, what we are saying is that we want to create a situation where finally our societies value both our male children and our female children equally. That we don't have social norms and the expectations of women shaping what our girls can become. And then on top of that, we also don't have a situation where as we grow into young women and we begin to have families, and as you grow older, you then are hampered and limited by the fact that there are social expectations of what you are supposed to do. And especially when your country or the society in which you live has been affected by conflict, it should not be the case that you find yourself in a position where you are not expected to have issues to discuss at the peace table, and that it is for the combatants to be the ones who will have the discussion and the negotiation. And because you don't have issues to discuss, of course, you're not involved in the implementation. And I think that over and over again, there have been significant studies that have shown that when women are not involved in the implementation and when they are not inclusive agreements, you have an agreement that is fragile and that is not likely to stand the test And it's very likely that that particular community or country will find itself resuming conflict once again. So I think it's important for us to perhaps set ourselves the agenda of, this is the 25th anniversary of Beijing. It's the 20th anniversary of 1325. What are we going to do differently over the next 10 years as a medium-term goal, so that we don't come back 25 years later and it's another group of women discussing the fact that we are having an anniversary, but not really being able to demonstrate what has been achieved by that. One of the things that my office is doing with the Office of the Youth Envoy, and I'm really looking forward to that, is that we've developed a mentoring program where we have a number of young women and we are helping them by, as it were, training them to understand the instruments that the African continent has adopted for itself in order to be able to ensure greater participation, but also at the same time to have a better understanding of the structures of multilateral organizations, because if you don't understand them, you can't engage them. And I think that that's the kind of thing we should be looking at. How do we move from conceptualization to action? How do we make sure that we're not continuing to congratulate ourselves about the fact that we've been able to clock a milestone, but we can actually go back and say, and this is the substantive progress that we have achieved. I would be the first to agree that on the African continent, we have a number of very useful instruments. But I don't think that I would be saying anything surprising to anybody on this platform if I said that those instruments have not yet been operationalized such that we are achieving their full potential. And an example, a case in point, is the Youth Charter. Because one of the things that I know that the Youth Envoy's office is working on is that they've got young ladies and young gentlemen who are hustling to make sure that that protocol is implemented so that it becomes operationalized in government policy. And I mean, isn't it unfortunate that perhaps we have not thought about mobilizing constituencies for implementation in the same way as we have mobilized constituencies to create frameworks? And so what I would like to leave the panel discussions with, and what I think should be some of the takeaways from this discussion, is we know that Beijing was important. We know 1325 was a landmark. We know that we have a number of protocols and a number of instruments that give us agency. Now let's look about operationalizing those protocols, and let's make sure that agency is turned into action so that we can see that qualitatively, when we begin to look at the data and the statistics, we will see that we have not made nominal progress, but we would have made real progress. And I think that that is the agenda that we should set ourselves going forward. Otherwise, we will be failing the next generation. And one other thing that I think I would like to emphasize as we have an intergenerational dialogue is that for those women like myself, like yourself, who have lived our lives, as you said, in Beijing, you were breastfeeding. In Beijing, when Beijing happened, I think I was a young lawyer working at the Ghana Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. So I've come quite some way since then. But what we should be doing with an intergenerational dialogue, and also with a continuation of this discussion on whatever platforms we create for that process, is a network of mentors so that we can allow our younger generation to learn from us, not just from our successes. It's very nice to talk about the things we got right, but also the things we got wrong, because then they don't have to repeat them. And we can make sure that they are better than we were. And then we can achieve generation equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm raising my hand to sign up for being in the mentors to be about this. No, thank you for those powerful comments. And we want to come back to you on the points you've raised, that gender mainstreaming was important, but not transformative or sufficient, especially for us to position the role of young women. And we want to come back to that later and say, therefore, what is the model that we need? And secondly, you're challenging all of us to say, look, there is hypocrisy in public policy when we are meeting, talking elections, we are running after the same young people, the same young women who are the majority to give the vote, to elect a president, to elect a member of parliament. When we are looking for money, the IT sector knows the young people are the biggest consumers. And yet, when we are looking for a place to be in decision making, we are saying they have no experience and voice. So there's contradiction in public policy. It's around self-interest and self-protection. And how do we address those contradictions? I think it's a very important issue that you are raising. I also like the practical, to say what are some of the practical tools. And my challenge to you and the African Union is we always support countries when they do their mediation. What are the options of also working around the word I don't like, but I'm going to use it today, principles of engagement, which is also what may be called conditionalities, so that delegations among themselves also include the young people in their composition of their delegations. But we know it's not easy because it's an issue of power. So we can come back to that again. But thank you so much for those powerful reflections. I want to go to Burkina Faso and invite our director, Madam Ouedraogo. And we are very, very excited about all the work that your leadership, and I can see your ministry is so full from the range of issues that you deal with, the family, national solidarity, humanitarian action. It's a huge portfolio that you do have. I also know that around child marriage, definitely the region and the country still has very high numbers. But talk to us. What do you see is the role of young people in your country in advancing gender equality? But more importantly, how can you share with us some practical ways of how we can jointly tackle gender-based violence together with young people? Just some examples of what is happening within your country. Thank you so much, and over to you, Madam Ouedraogo.
Voilà. Bonjour tout le monde. C'est bon?
Bonjour, madame. Proceed.
Ok.
Yes.
Je m'excuse déjà parce que j'ai pris la rencontre en cours de route. Donc, excusez-moi pour les retards. Avant de répondre à vos questions, j'aimerais d'abord féliciter l'organisation d'un tel événement, d'un tel niveau. Voilà, à une période aussi difficile. Voilà. Également, je tiens à traduire les félicitations et les reconnaissances de Madame la ministre, à qui vous avez adressé une correspondance pour demander sa participation. Mais vous savez que nous sommes au Burkina Faso dans une période électorale, donc son calendrier étant chargé, elle m'a en tout cas chargé de représenter le ministère à cet événement et de traduire sa reconnaissance aux organisateurs. Voilà. Ce que je peux dire, il faut noter que le contexte socioculturel en Afrique est marqué par un certain nombre de croyances et de pratiques qui sont sources de violence à l'égard des femmes et des filles et constituent des violations majeures des droits des femmes. Au Burkina Faso, le Burkina Faso n'échappe pas à cela et ces pratiques néfastes se posent avec acuité et la promotion de l'égalité et de l'égalité des genres plutôt reste un défi et une priorité pour les gouvernants. Et le pays, pour cela, a ratifié, que ce soit au niveau régional, que ce soit au niveau international, un certain nombre de conventions et de politiques qu'il a internalisées au plan national à travers des politiques et également à travers des textes juridiques afin de promouvoir l'égalité des genres. Et l'un des engagements vraiment à saluer au niveau du Burkina Faso, c'est vrai que ça date d'un certain nombre d'années, mais c'est quand même important, c'est la création du ministère en charge de la femme et du genre. Voilà, pour qu'il y ait en tout cas un ministère plein qui défende les préoccupations des femmes et fait la promotion du genre. Au plan juridique, ce que nous pouvons dire au Burkina Faso, comme engagement, nous avons la constitution de notre pays qui stipule que tous les Burkinabés sont égaux et interdits pour cela les discriminations fondées sur les sexes. Il faut noter également tout récemment la relecture de notre code pénal qui est vraiment à saluer car un certain nombre de pratiques culturelles néfastes ont été pris en compte dans ce code pénal et sont sanctionnés. Nous pouvons parler des violences psychologiques, des violences culturelles, des violences physiques, morales, économiques ou culturelles qui sont punies par notre code pénal. La fréquence de ces pratiques néfastes qui sont dans notre pays, la récurrence plutôt de ces pratiques néfastes, nous pouvons citer le mariage d'enfants et également l'excision. Un autre phénomène qui brime en tout cas les droits des femmes, c'est les femmes exclues pour allégation de sorcellerie, parce que c'est vraiment une pratique ignoble qui met des vieilles personnes dans une condition de vulnérabilité. Et cela a été pris en compte. L'un des engagements aussi en termes de texte, c'est le quota genre, voilà, qui avait été adopté en 2009 et rélu en 2018. Et c'est là pour fixer, en tout cas booster la représentativité des femmes dans les instances de décision, qui parle de promouvoir l'égalité de genre. Ce sont les femmes qui doivent être en avant pour le faire. Et pour cela, il faut qu'elles aient la possibilité de décider de l'orientation à donner pour les actions afin de défendre leur cause. Voilà, donc en cela, en tout cas le quota genre revu en 2018 dans notre pays et plutôt en 2019 est à saluer parce que ça coïncide également avec l'année électorale qui commence cette année. Donc, nous avons également une autre loi qui est la répression de l'excision, qui est également un phénomène qui a de l'ampleur au niveau de notre pays. Donc, également la loi 071 qui porte la prévention et la réparation des violences à l'égard des femmes et des filles. Au plan politique, il faut noter notre PNDS qui est le référentiel de développement au niveau de notre pays, qui prend fin malheureusement. Bon, en cours, nous sommes en train de revoir pour mettre en place un autre plan de développement. Voilà, et ce plan également met au cœur de ces actions la promotion de l'égalité à travers la promotion de la santé maternelle, la planification familiale, l'inclusion, ainsi de suite, ainsi de suite. Donc, ces différents documents stratégiques placent l'égalité des genres et la femme dans leurs actions et objectifs. À partir de ce référentiel national, 17 sectoriels ont élaboré également des plans et stratégies afin de promouvoir l'égalité des genres sur tous les plans, sur le plan sanitaire, sur le plan éducation, de l'éducation, sur le plan économique, ainsi de suite, ainsi de suite. Donc, comme rôle, voilà, c'est assez important de le dire, parce que notre pays est majoritairement jeune. La population est constituée de 47% qui ont moins de 15 ans et également 67% qui ont moins de 25 ans. Donc, c'est une population à l'image de beaucoup de populations en Afrique qui est assez jeune. Et c'est cette population qui est touchée par le phénomène quand on parle d'égalité, d'équité de genre, c'est cette population qui est la plus touchée. Donc, ayant conscience de cela, la jeunesse au Burkina Faso a été mise au cœur, en tout cas ces dernières années, de la lutte pour la promotion de l'égalité des genres et contre les discriminations à l'égard des femmes et des filles. Donc, à titre d'exemple, nous pouvons, pour les cas de l'excision, par exemple, lors de la commémoration des 17e journée internationale de la tolérance zéro, voilà, qui coïncide avec la 20e journée nationale de la lutte contre la pratique de l'excision au niveau du Burkina Faso. L'appel a été lancé à la jeunesse de prendre le flambeau et l'appel a été répondu parce que la jeunesse, en cette journée, s'est vraiment engagée à poursuivre la lutte menée pendant près de 3 décennies par des pionniers. Donc, comme stratégie d'élite au niveau du Burkina Faso, il y a de nouvelles stratégies parce qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui ont été faites, mais compte tenu des insuffisances, de nouvelles stratégies ont été développées pour pouvoir lutter contre efficacement pour l'égalité de genre. Et ces stratégies, essentiellement, c'est la prise en compte des hommes dans la lutte pour la promotion de l'égalité des genres, l'amélioration des connaissances et des stratégies nouvelles également. Donc, pour finir, je peux dire, pour finir, je dis en tout cas merci une fois de plus de nous avoir invités à participer à une telle journée qui est assez importante pour notre pays et également pour notre jeunesse. Je vous remercie.
We know that we are under pressure of time, and we may have another round of discussion again today in this session. I just want to move a bit and to invite. You raised very fundamental issues around the range of policies that you have in the country, and we want to come back again to, yes, we have all the baskets of policies and instruments. What are the steps around implementation? So I want to move and invite Ikram Said, founder of Aswat Nisia, as I had introduced here before, to share with us. You are a young woman and a very courageous young woman. You have founded and established one of the most engaged and powerful organizations towards women's political participation. And we know we are in the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you share with us, in this regard, what is your opinion on the role of African young women in promoting and advancing gender-sensitive public policy? We have so much work on public policy within COVID-19. So what do you see is the approach, the role, and the ways in which we can have gender-sensitive public policy? Over to you, Ms. Said.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank especially the African Union Youth Envoy Office for this invite. I think this is the first time I have been invited as African to join an African conversation, and that makes me reflect on the necessity to rethink and reimagining the African identity, especially for us in North Africa, who usually people identify as Arabs more than African. So thank you very much, Shebi, for this nice opportunity. Before jumping into the response around how can young feminists and young women do to make gender-sensitive public policies, I just want to share with you anecdote on when I launched Aswat Nisa, which means Voices of Women, which is a feminist organization that works on women's political participation and to make policies gender sensitive. Before that, that was because the organization is a product of the Tunisian Revolution. So before that, I was an activist in an organization that works for single mothers and children who were born out of the wedlock, and spending a lot of time with these women and really listening to their stories, which usually there are stories of injustices and marginalization. When the revolution happened and I saw women, and I was among the women in the front line of the protests, I thought that I will not wait until the mentalities evolve. I will not wait until we change the social norms, and women's voices need to be front and center in the heart of the democracy and in the heart of power. So that was the thinking behind engaging in the gender-sensitive public policy, because I believe that the way we design budget, the way we vote for laws and policies, shift the mentality and shift the culture. So I wanted to tackle the subject of gender equality from the space of policy and from the space of power. And for this, I think I have three main recommendations for young people who really want to involve in to engage in that space. And I will unpack one by one. I think the first one is engaging critically with power. And I really want to highlight critically, and I will unpack that. And the second thing, that the work of the policy, research or work really needs to be grounded in the community struggles and context. And I will unpack that in regards with the technicality and bringing experts in the space. And the third is solidarity and get back to the grassroots organizing, which is get back to really the grassroots organizing and mobilizing and building women power and women agency, rather than a small elite advocating on behalf of other women. So I want to get back to my first point, which is engaging critically with power, because if you want to change policies and laws, you really need to understand that those institutions that they have the power to do so are most of the time are men-made. And they are men-made institutions, not only by all men, but by a particular group of men who are usually cis, up-class, educated, able-bodied men. That means that the production of the policies, the design of the budget, usually will reflect that only perspective and not the perspective of women and gender diverse people. So it is very important that we need to understand who has the power, who wanted, and who is prevented from it. And when young feminists will enter that space, they will be mocked, they will be patronized, they will be intimidated, and they will be pushed aside because of their age and because of their gender. So critically engaging, not being afraid, not saying that we are an organization, we are civil society, we should not engage with political parties. We should engage with political parties and government. But also we need to look critically at that power. And because also power will try also to corrupt us. And this is how we see state feminism, and also how can the state use women's rights to basically shrink the space for young feminists and for feminists in general. The second thing is grounding our policy in community struggle and context, because it's very important to remind people that social and economic problems are not technical problems. They are power problems that takes politics and people. And there is a tendency now for decades that policy work and policy advocacy is the responsibility of technicians, is the responsibility of the bureaucrats, of the highly educated, of the academia, of the World Bank, of the IMF. And that's not true. And I really want to remind the young feminists that feminism and politics, it's not a theory up there, it's a lived experience. And for us to make our policies inclusive and gender sensitive, we need to bring these voices to those spaces, not only us advocating on behalf of them. So basically, I mean, I studied public policy. I am a feminist. I consider myself grounded in my community. If you will ask me tomorrow about access to clean water, for instance, I am not probably the best person because I never experienced walking 5 kilometers to bring clean water to my family. But if I go back to that community and bring the women to the parliament, to the municipality, and they express their views, here the policy will be really inclusive and speak to people. I don't see why a woman sitting up there in the World Bank in Washington, D.C. would make a decision or a recommendation on behalf of women vendors when it comes to informal sector. And I really want to say this nice quote by the South African economist, feminist, when she, Pico, when she said, there is nothing informal about women who wake up at 4 a.m., take 3 taxis to get to the job. So those lived experiences, those everyday experiences are the center when we design the policies and when we design the budget. What we need, it's not people who are really expert. I mean, of course, we can have both and we need expertise, but we need people who see the injustices and being angry and they want to change things. We need people to understand how budget is made as this budget is unjust. This budget doesn't take care of my needs as a woman, as an LGBT, as person of color, or as whatever. And then when we have that understanding, we really need to team up with the people and advocate. That takes me to my third point, which is solidarity and getting back to the grassroots. Because if we put a lot of emphasis on the technicality, what happened that despite the good intention of feminists, you will end up with a group of women elite advocating on behalf of other women. And that undermines the women's power and the women agency, because we need to get back to the communities, to rural women, to women in working class, build the capacity. I mean, I don't mean by the capacity like the training, but invest in the agency and work together. So we will not become the voice of the voices, but there is nothing called voice of the voices. Everybody has a voice, people, they don't have a platform. And our role as feminists is really opening the space and also being enabler. So these women show up and they ruin that policy space for people who always think that only technician and only academia and only people coming from upper class and speaking certain language. This is about everyday experience. And I believe women, whatever their education background, whatever their socioeconomic background, they have a say. And then you can bring the technician to change and put it in a language that works in a parliament or municipality and turn it to policy and budgets. So this is for me, based on my experience at Aswatni say, what I learned from engaging in the policy space.
So Ikram, I wanted to stand up. I wanted to just say, go on, girl. Say it louder, much louder for those at the back, much louder for those who don't want to shift perspective. Say it loud and clear that everybody has a voice. It's only that we take their space and want to speak on their behalf, when actually everybody has a voice. Thank you so much for that powerful, powerful statement, and for reminding us that there's nothing micro about women and nothing informal. Everything is part of the collective and part of the macro. That is politics and people that are at the center of public policy, and that we need to contend and to engage with. Thank you so much for that powerful statement, and really for challenging our notions of power and how I also experience my own power. I want to go to Mohammed Sidibe. Mohammed, before I come to you, and I just want to acknowledge Your Excellency, Madam Felson Abdullahi, the Honorable Minister of Women, Child, Youth for the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. The Honorable Minister came into when we're having this conversation and generously said, definitely the Minister will sit in for the session and will share some reflections with us at the end of our session. So this we really, really, really appreciate. So I want to move on to Mr. Mohammed Sidibe. You are outspoken. That's why you are a youth champion. You are outspoken. You continue to call for equal access to quality education for boys and girls. Why? Why did you take this as the issue for you? And as you continue to advance gender equality, and can you share with us why is participation in generation equality forums and the focus on education so important in the action coalitions? The Generation Equality Forums are part of our Beijing +25 processes. The action coalitions are how we move with the implementation, and want to acknowledge really the leadership of the UN and UN Women in pushing that framing in those processes. But talk to us, Mohammed, why Why is education and participation important? And why equality? Over to you.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Honored to be here today with these leaders discussing such an important issue. Quality education for both boys and girls is a matter of survival because education saves lives. I should know this because it saved mine. Without education, I wouldn't be here today. At just 5 years old, I was forced to join the Revolutionary United Front rebels in Sierra Leone. And only after the war ended did I start going to school. And at that point, I was 10. But thanks to the education I received, I'm now in my final year of qualifying as a lawyer, both in New York and in France. And I will be joining a global law firm in New York as a corporate associate. Representation matters in that room. See, education is the right of every child. It is also an enabler of other rights and allowed individuals to realize their rights to decent work and adequate standard of living. As it was just discussed, there's nothing informal about someone taking 3 buses at 4 a.m. in the morning to make a living. See? But all too often, girls are left behind when it comes to education. Prior to COVID-19, 150 million girls around the world and 50 million girls in Africa were out of school. And because of school closures during COVID, millions of girls lost access to educational materials and could not continue their learning. They also faced increased vulnerability to violence, child marriage, and early pregnancy. On the issue of education and gender equality, gender equality is about driving equal and improved outcomes for girls and boys so that they continue to be healthy, educated, and safe. Harmful gender norms that have negative impact for girls, boys, their communities, and their countries are man-made. Therefore, through education, these norms can be challenged and are thus susceptible to change. Gender equality is necessary for ending poverty, silencing the guns, and achieving sustainable development. The first step to achieving that is by making gender equality a priority in education. To teach all girls, we have to think at scale. We must work at the systems level and put girls at the center of education sector plans and strategies and ensure that they get the support they needed. The Global Partnership for Education, GPE, is supporting the Democratic Republic of Congo with 100 million grants to implement a girls' education strategy to accelerate progress towards gender equality in education, which includes a public awareness campaign to promote girls' education and training modules on gender-based violence prevention for teachers and other education stakeholders. This is how harmful gender norms are challenged and gender equality is achieved. And lastly, the GPE is very supportive of the African Young Women Manifesto and is committed to advocating to the Generation Equality Forum and action coalitions and beyond to carry forward the demand of the manifesto. Because the Generation Equality Forum is important. Because 25 years after the first major conference on women's rights, the Beijing platform for action, the world has a chance to take a stock. We've made progress for sure, but we cannot sleep on our past progress, not while we have such a long way to go. The Generation Equality Forum, led by France and Mexico and UN Women, will bring countries, civil societies, multilaterals, and young people together to formulate a feminist path forward for the world. The Generation Equality Forum commitment will take forward by the Six Nation Coalition. But there's a problem. Girls' education is not a standalone action coalition. So we need to make sure the leaders of all Six Nation Coalition make ambitious commitments to girls' education. This is why a conversation like this one are so crucial. We the youth We need to tell the leaders of the world that the path to progress for girls begins with a quality education. This is why GPE advocating for girls' education to be mainstreamed through all the African coalitions of the Generation Equality Forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that great and profound presentations. And the lawyer in me is just celebrating the lawyer in you. Congratulations. And it seems already you have landed a law firm that you'll be working with in the US. So as you are in GPE, would also be keen to reflect later within the work that you are doing and the platforms that you are having on GPE is a collaborative of big countries putting their money there. So what would be your advice to the incoming US administration as they participate in GPE? Because we don't look at your roles as only to influence in the community, but also the community of countries, of big, powerful countries that are putting money to education. So that as they put money to education, they can put money to the mentoring program, to the implementation that Madam Wadrago talked about, and what Ikram talked about, that communities have voices. So we're also looking at your voice and your role within that very powerful space that you have. I'm really excited. Thank you so much, Mohammed. I'm really excited and great conversation. Intergenerational perspectives that we are having. Remember, today is the International Day for us to eliminate violence against women. And it's the first day of the 16 days of activism, which is part of the big conversation that we are hosted by the Office of the Special Envoy in collaboration with partners. Honorable Minister Abdullahi, you are our minister in the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. You have listened to the presentations as you come in. I'd like to invite you to give us a message, a statement, and your own thoughts on this critical issue that we are discussing today. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize as well due to other engagements. I was a bit late, so I apologize on that. But I made it, so that's good. I was looking forward to this platform as well. I want to thank the organizers of this meeting, African Union Youth Envoy. I think you can hear me first. Let me check that on. Can you guys hear me? If you can wave. Perfect. So thank you for the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy in collaboration with African Union Women, Gender and Development Directorate. And thank you for always the support that you guys give us as well. This meeting includes 3 issues, so I'll try to link them all together and address them jointly. And I'll come back to my final on the question that Doctor has asked me. Conducting intergenerational dialogues for taking action on climate change or justice by the feminist and any other group who feels that the issue concerns them is the right and legitimate move to discuss issues which are preventing to deal with the challenges that are facing the world due to climate disaster, lack of peace and security, and most of all, not being able to reach agreements on achieving gender equality. Excellencies and dear participants, Ethiopia is a country of 115 million people. Out of the 115 million, we have like 41% of the population under the age of 15, and more than 28% are between the age of 15 and 24. Therefore, any issue regarding climate change, feminist movement, peace and security, these are all linked and are in our government's priority list. It has been said in many forms that the youth in the future of our countries and continent. So this is the state of nature that we cannot change, unfortunately. We have to bring all of our actors and activists on board. We have to dialogue with the young people, we have to embrace them. We have to communicate and interact with them and make them ready to hold offices and be a future leaders as well, as they are leaders today. Gradually and surely, they will be the chair to decide on the fate of our countries and especially on our continent. Currently, our government has agents working in all the regions who are responsible on following up actions and combat climate changes by doing our green legacy initiatives like planting trees, modernizing agricultural production systems, by training farmers through agricultural agents on how to increase productions by using modern technology. My government gives full attention to the issues of the climate change, knowing very well agriculture is one of the most important economic sectors which could lead the nation to a real prosperity. More than 90% in confidence, to be honest. And from that 90% are in the Ethiopian population, in the agricultural sector, are 50% of them are women. And girls who are at the most, who gets affected if anything happens in the climate change, the most affected segments of the population of the climate change due to the facts that they are at the lower socioeconomic groups of the society. So it really concerns this country as well. Furthermore, global climate disaster for African youth means more gender inequalities within the same continent. Due to the fact that girls have the responsibility of taking care of the family compared to boys, this means less girls will be able to go to school. Women and girls will be unable to access health centers or any health facilities. They'll be unable to find jobs as well. And the list of unableness of women and girls due to climate disaster can go on. I mean, we know the problems in Africa. Ethiopia has also established a youth parliament in all its regions. The task of the youth parliament is to enable the young generation to be able to voice their issues and concerns through their own parliament and to ensure their rights are protected. This is a fundamental way of promoting democracy and protecting the rule of law. This platform is an essential instrument for dialogue between generations and sex regarding, among others, climate change, peace and security, as well as intergenerational dialogues as well. Therefore, when we talk about the intergenerational dialogue, or we talk about peace and security, poverty due to climate change, we have to align our thoughts with three objectives. The first objective I would definitely say is check out what's being done at a national or country level by our member states regarding climate change, peace and security, and the feminist movements working in this area. What is our continent doing to link together efforts being made by each of its members to learn and share experiences on climate change? What are the gaps and how do we complete these gaps? How do we narrow it? What is the joint position that we have as countries? At the global level, everyone talks about climate change. Some support actions taken globally and some say no to the movements to make a global commitment. So where is Africa or our continent in this global discussions? What is the continent's position? What does the continent get from these dialogues and discussions? Therefore, climate change and peace and security should be the primary concern of the African youth, including feminist movements and other youth institutions. The youth have to declare ownership of these issues, discuss it, challenge it, and come up with a suggestion on the way forward. And to come up to the last bit of the question, and to actually conclude my part, I'll definitely say we're by all stating that if we don't all state gender inequality and address it in all spheres of social economic developments, and addressing just climate change interventions, peace and security, and intergenerational dialogue won't be ineffective. So I have to say this, not because I'm the Minister of Women, Children, and Youth, but as a person as well. If we don't come understanding inequality, then we won't understand any of these problems that we have. So the key, most important key is inequality, to address the climate change, to address peace and security. And to be honest, as we are all aware, where peace and security is concerned, women are disproportionately affected by conflicts and wars. Women are the first group to be displaced with or without their children. They suffer the most and lost most by conflicts, or lose most by conflicts. So these are all interlinked, and we need to understand what priority as Africans we need to take. And thank you so much for having me as well. Thank you. On to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, and thank you for continually being our host of the African Union. And we hope that when COVID-19 is gone and done, we'll be traveling to Addis to enjoy Injera, but also to have a deeper interaction with Ethiopian young people, because that would be important. And as you raise the issues of peace and security, we are praying with you, we are supporting your country as you find solutions to the issues that is confronting the nation. And we are aware that the African Union and the UN is doing everything possible to support the country. And I hope in finding solutions, you also include the voices of young women and of young people in this moment. So I want to say thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for coming, for being here, and for your profound statement on climate justice and on climate issues. Thank you very much. I would like to invite Vanessa. Madam Vanessa Milea Metu is a member of the African Union Youth Advisory Council and chair for the Central African Beijing +25 Youth Baraza. Do you have a quick comment? If we can just give you a minute and you go straight to the point. I'm very conscious of time, and after that I'll come back to my panelists for a wrap-up comment. Thank you. Vanessa, over to you.
Thank you for giving the floor. Merci. Je voudrais reconnaître le leadership de l'envoyé qui ne cesse de ménager des efforts pour prendre en place pour la prise en compte de la place de la jeune femme et des jeunes en particulier. Alors, je vais juste revenir sur certains temps forts de la Baraza de l'Afrique centrale qui ont été essentiellement épinglés dans le manifeste qui a été présenté par l'envoyé Madame IGD. Nous avons eu une discussion autour de 7 thèmes relatifs aux coalitions d'action catalytique, mais également au thème de l'année sur faire taire les âmes. Et donc, nous avons eu le premier atelier sur la violence basée sur le genre qui mettait en avant le fait que les jeunes femmes avaient besoin d'être protégées par rapport à tout type de violences qui se sont accentuées, notamment avec la pandémie à coronavirus, et qu'il fallait renforcer la sensibilisation, mais également éduquer pour mettre fin à certains types de violences telles que les mutilations génitales, les violences physiques, verbales et émotionnelles. Ensuite, nous avons abordé la thématique sur la justice et les droits économiques qui mettait en avant l'égalité salariale et l'égalité à l'entrepreneuriat et à toutes les chances pour les jeunes femmes. Nous avons abordé l'autonomie corporelle, la santé, les droits sexuels reproductifs, le droit de la femme à disposer de son corps et de décider d'elle-même du nombre des maternités. Nous avons abordé l'action féministe pour la justice climatique qui venait entre autres également d'être épinglée par la panéliste précédente, combien il est important d'intégrer les femmes et les jeunes dans le processus de lutte contre le changement climatique. Il est important d'éduquer et de protéger notre planète pour les générations futures. Ensuite, nous avons abordé le point sur les mouvements et le leadership féministe, combien il était important que les femmes s'engagent en politique et dans toutes les sphères de prise de décision et qu'elles qu'elle soit mise en avant et responsabilisée. Et enfin, en ce qui concerne les jeunes faire taire les armes, nous avons mis en avant le fait qu'il était important de briser le cycle des violences sur le continent et qu'il était important également de mettre au cœur des processus d'opérations de maintien de paix et de réconciliation la femme et la jeune femme, également de l'impliquer dans le mouvement de faire taire les armes qui cette année et sensibiliser davantage les jeunes en cela. Alors, la dernière partie de ces remarques concernant mon intervention vient sur ma perception par rapport au manifeste qui a été présenté, qui est l'émanation de la volonté des jeunes femmes par rapport à Beijing 25 et la génération égalité. Alors, cette perception laisse entrevoir, cela a été signifié par l'ambassadeur Tété avant moi, Anna et tout le reste, c'est que la jeune femme se sent marginalisée. Et donc, ce manifeste ne fait que laisser apparaître le fait que 25 ans après Beijing, il y a encore un gap à combler. 25 ans après, il y a encore des choses à concrétiser au-delà des politiques, au-delà des politiques pour les transformer en réelle volonté. Donc, cela laisse juste transparaître que la jeune femme a besoin d'être responsabilisée et a le droit d'être à la table des décisions, et qu'on a besoin de plus d'IGD, on a besoin de plus de jeunes diplomates, on a besoin de plus de femmes responsabilisées au niveau des communautés régionales et autres. On a besoin de plus de femmes en politique, dans l'armée. Et je salue également en passant le leadership de certains hommes qui ont compris que la femme a sa place. Je salue le leadership de son Excellence Moussa Faki qui a créé une place pour les jeunes, et le cas du Rwanda également, qui dans ses réformes met en avant la jeune femme. Donc, nous allons y arriver, et on a besoin que les hommes, justement, accompagnent la jeune femme dans ce combat. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I know that you have a lot that you wanted to share, and we also wanted to ask questions to you and say, therefore, when you identified all these issues, what steps are you taking to achieve them? But anyway, thank you so much. We hope that ECAS will grow to be much stronger as a regional body, so that we have strong ECOWAS, strong SADC, strong ECAS, strong IGD, so that our regional blocks can also have strong policies and can take some of the issues that you have raised with us. I want to go back to my panelists, and you have 2 minutes max, because we have to wrap up our session. We are under constraints of time, so I will not go to the second level of substantive discussion. And I'll start with you, Ambassador Hannah Tete. For all of you, it's the same question. Each one of us holds certain influence or power, whether in our personal lives, in our social lives, in our professional lives. Each one of us can make a difference in what we do. What are you going to do differently? What is the personal action you are going to take in order to advance intergenerational leadership for gender equality and fighting violence?
Well, I think I've
you have 2 minutes.
My initial remarks when I said that we have started with the Office of the Youth Envoy a mentoring program, but I think that it's not about one action. I think in order to make a difference, it has to be a consistency of actions. So the points that were made, especially with regard to by Madam Ikram Ben Said, especially with regard to women's participation in the economy, and the way in which economic policy looks to support small and medium enterprises, which we know are the backbone of most African economies. The comment made by Mohammed about supporting women in education, I think all of those issues are important. So I think what we've got to do, and what I commit to do, is that wherever I see that in issues that I am dealing with, there is the space and the opportunity to include a gender lens, and in that gender lens, to focus on young women, I will do so. Because by doing it not in one action, but in a number of actions, I think I will be in a position to make a stronger impact than if I was just to focus on one issue.
Thank you so much. You are sharing with us strategy. This is a deep insight into strategy. So at times we sit in spaces where we can have multiple layers of opportunities for influence. So let's not be captured by one single entry point to the work that we do. Madam Wadrago, your follow-ups, where are you going to put your energy? And what is your advice? 2 minutes. And then I come to Mohammed, and we close with Ikra. Whilst Madam Wadrago is coming, Mohammed, your closing statement on the same question.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, and the moderators, and all protocols observed. I think that to achieve gender equality, we can start by advocating for increased investment in education to build systems that leave no child behind and ensure that each girl and boy is equipped with the skills they need to achieve their potential and become active, engaged citizens. This is why I am campaigning with the Global Partnership for Education to keep education financing a priority for the world, for world leaders, including more and better domestic financing from our governments. The campaign will accumulate in a global financing conference in 2021, which is co-hosted by President Kenyatta of Kenya and the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And the voice of African youth is crucial in the campaign to ensure that we build back equals for girls. And this can only happen if girls' education is properly invested in by African leaders. As we've heard earlier in the video, it's time to shake things up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Madam Wadrago, is she now there to give a closing message?
S'il vous plaît, vous pouvez répondre la question en français pour moi?
My French, my Francais and co, I will ask Sadfa to give the translation of the message. It's your closing remark on the way forward.
J'ai pas compris. J'ai dit de reprendre en français.
Yes, can I ask from the Office of the Special Envoy for somebody to just summarize? You can open the mic.
Madame Ouedraogo, on vous demande votre mot de la fin, vos conclusions par rapport à la discussion.
Ah, ok, merci. C'était vraiment enrichissant d'avoir toutes ces interventions, également les expériences des autres pays en ce qui concerne la lutte pour l'égalité des genres et la promotion de la femme, surtout parce que ce que j'ai pu constater, c'est que dans le monde entier, le cap, effectivement, c'est au niveau de la femme. Et les actions, dans leur majorité, sont dirigées vers les femmes pour lever ce cap-là. Donc, j'ai vraiment apprécié positivement toutes ces interventions et également féliciter une fois de plus les organisateurs pour avoir créé ce cadre-là afin que des pays depuis des années qui s'engagent pour la promotion des droits de la femme et la lutte contre les violences à l'égard des femmes et des filles puissent
We have lost sound for Madam Wadrago. So we want to say thank you to her for the last intervention, and I'll ask Ikram to give us the last word.
Thank you. What a responsibility.
Ikram?
Yes. Can you hear me? I think we will, first of all, thank you again to the leadership of ASHB for bringing us together to engage in this intergenerational dialogue. I wish I had this platform when I was very, very young, because I believe that young people, I mean, especially young female, are really on the margin of what is happening, and they are kind of excluded because of their age and their gender. But to the young people that are listening to us today, and we were talking about all those challenges facing women, my advice to them, I mean, I don't want to lecture them, but I just want to say, please don't be discouraged by all the challenges that you are facing. And if you are not invited to a table, bring your own and don't wait. And I think we really need audacity, we need boldness, and we need to show up into the spaces that we have been and we are still excluded for them. And please act, 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 act. Don't wait for permission.
Thank you so much. My big appreciation to the panel. Thank you so much, and to the host. I want to hand over the session, conscious of time, to the lead facilitator for this intergenerational dialogue. Over to you, Zani.
Excellencies, thank you so much for that inspiring conversation and your commitments. We are now heading towards the closing of ceremony, and it is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency, Mrs. Rebecca Nyandeng Demabior, Vice President of South Sudan, for the closing keynote. The Vice President is the only woman among 5 Vice Presidents of South Sudan. Very impressive. We're so happy to have you here today. We're also aware about the visit the Youth Envoy has had in South Sudan during Africa Youth Day, where you met and exchanged on your vision for young women. So we look forward to hearing more about the work of the Youth Gender Cluster and the journey that you have as a woman leader. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear. Thank you. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? You can hear me?
Hello. Hi, I'm so sorry. We seem to be having a little bit of a connection problem. We're hoping to see what she can be able to do with the connection. But right now, I'm just double checking again, is her connection back? I'm not sure if we should move on. Okay, let's see who else we have that is ready, and maybe we can then go back to Her Excellency. So I'm just going to move on a little bit, and I will ask for Miss Aisata and Miss Victoria for, sorry. Okay. So sorry about that. We will quickly move on to Miss Aisata and Miss Victoria for their vote of thanks. I know that that is almost towards the end, and we should have the keynote back again when she is able to connect. So can we please have Miss Aisata and Miss Victoria?
Thank you so much. Apologies for the delay in starting. I could not unmute myself, but good afternoon, good morning, and evening to everyone, excellencies and distinguished guests. All protocols are observed. My name is Aisata Kamara, and I am the co-founder of There Is No Limit Foundation. It is a pleasure to join you today on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and during the African Youth Month to raise the voices and hopes of young African women. Before I begin, I want to thank all the partners and teams that have made this event possible, and I will especially like to thank the African Union and its Youth Envoy, my sister Aya Shebi, for their collaboration and leadership. I also share our sincere gratitude to the Wallace Global Fund and Susan Gibbs for their unwavering efforts to empower young African women through our work to end gender-based violence, specifically female genital mutilation. It is important to remember the context within which we are meeting. The world continues to be impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and unfortunately, women and girls are being negatively affected socially and economically. We are also seeing higher instances of domestic and gender-based violence, further deepening inequities. Our organization, There Is No Limit Foundation, works daily to deliver critical services focused on quality education, entrepreneurship, and health. We are active on the continent in the Republic of Guinea, my native country, and Cote d'Ivoire. And we also work with diaspora members in the United States. We carry out our programs because we believe deeply that people have a right to live in dignity and security. And that's also the reason we focus our efforts on the most marginalized members of our society, people living in extreme poverty with disabilities, many of whom are women and children. And since 2008, we have empowered over 30,000 people, and our message to end violence against women has reached over 10 million people. 25 years ago, when I was around 7 years old, UN member states agreed that women's rights are human rights, and they adopted the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. There is a lot to celebrate about that moment, and there is a lot to be proud of since then. But there is also a lot of work to do to ensure the rights and equities of women and girls everywhere, especially those young women living in Africa and in the diaspora are protected. Young African women like me must have a seat at the table. We must be given opportunities to access decent work, to live without discrimination, to take leadership positions locally, nationally, and internationally. And when faced with a breach of our rights, we must have access to strong judicial systems that see us as whole human beings with inalienable rights. Young African women also cannot be left behind in the digital revolution. We must lead it. We deserve to live in a conflict-free world, a world where guns are silenced and peace reigns. And we want to live without domestic and gender-based violence. As a society, we must not allow over 200 additional girls to be subjected to female genital mutilation. We must end this practice and other harmful practices that stunt the prospect of young African women. And these are the reasons why I am proud to stand with my sister Aya and all other young African women to raise our voices and to add our perspective to the global discourse on women and girls' rights. My organization, There Is No Limit Foundation, makes the commitment to push this manifesto forward and to enact the change it calls for in our communities and around the world. So on this historic day, I congratulate young African women everywhere for continuing to speak up, to break the silence, and to drive change. Many years from now, when we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Beijing platform, I hope we will count this manifesto amongst the sparks that led the way for the empowerment of young African women. Thank you for your attention. Merci.
Ms. Victoria, go ahead, proceed.
Yes, thank you very much, Zosie. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, the young women and progressive men of Africa, I honor you, I salute you. And a really very good afternoon, a very good morning, wherever you are in the world. My name is Victoria Malok. I'm the Acting Director for the Women, Gender and Development Directorate at the African Union Commission. And allow me to stand really on all the existing protocols established by previous speakers. And I'm really pleased to give a vote of thanks at this high-level intergenerational dialogue on Beijing +25 Young Women's Manifesto. On behalf of His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, under whose leadership the Office of the Youth Envoy and the Gender Directorate derive a mandate, I really wish to thank you all for supporting the mandate of the AU Youth Envoy and particularly for answering her call to mobilize all young women in the continent to develop this important manifesto that we are discussing today. We received a lot of support across the continent and beyond, which is really a testament not only to the convening power of the AUC and particularly the Youth Envoy, but it is also a testament to your commitment towards the AU gender and youth agenda and to ensure that young women are not left behind as we chart a way forward on generation equality. The Youth Manifesto was developed by young women, for young women, and of course with the support of progressive young men who believe in gender equality and who are willing to do the unconventional and walk side by side with their sisters. We really would like to honor all of you for this. Allow me, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to really thank all the general support that we have received from our donors, the Children's Investment Fund, There's No Limit Foundation, Global Partnership for Education, the Wallace Global Fund. We really thank you very much for this. We also wish to extend a heartfelt appreciation to the members of the steering committee. We have African Women Leaders Network, our elders who continue to lead in matters of gender equality and women's empowerment, and in particular, making sure that young women are right there working side by side with the elders. The Beijing +25 Youth Task Force, We also thank Gender is My Gender campaign, GMAC, which continues to walk this journey with us. We appreciate Moremi Initiative for Women's Leadership in Africa, Power, our founding mothers. We thank you, we honor you, and really under the leadership and available support of Karidasa, Juliet Kimoto, Molly Dake, Anika James, Lorato Mudongo, Elizabeth Chatua, Precious Banda, Nelly Nkomo, Palesa Mpamo, and Tembeli Shelanga. We thank you so very much. You've done a fantastic job. And really many thanks to the youth networks who co-hosted the different bazaars, the East African Community Youth Ambassadors. Thank you very much. The Southern Africa Youth Forum, many thanks to you. The Not for Trade organization, thank you. And really all for co-hosting the Youth Southern and North Africa Bazaars, many thanks for that. And for today and all the other meetings that we had, we thank the moderators, we thank the rapporteurs, all of whom moderated and supported the process, ensuring really the success of this mobilization. Thank you, Dr. Shanika, Chair of the Southern Africa Youth Bazaar and member of the African Union Youth Advisory Council. Thank you, Vanessa, the Chair of the Central Africa Youth Bazaar and the member of the AU Youth Advisory Council. We thank you very much. Of course, this wouldn't have been possible without the meaningful support of the national youth-led and young women's organizations and networks who have led each thematic area constituting the consultations, including, for example, the Donors for Africa, AfriYarn, Sasti Vibes, Teach Hair, or rather Tech Hair, Equals Now, YWC Nigeria, Titheste Nikanza Program, Sirat Initiative, Akili Dada, also Girls for Climate, and Crown the Women South Sudan. Thank you very much. And really our gratitude goes to UN Women for supporting and participating at each consultation through the regional offices. And of course, we have the Executive Director here with us today. Thank you very much, Edie, for really working this journey with us. We also give thanks to Her Excellency, Madam Binta Diop, who continues to lead the AU Gender Agenda and also supporting the work of the Youth Envoy. Thank you so very much. We also thank all the excellencies and honorables who have joined our regional consultations and really going out of their way to engage young people and really sharing the vision of the young people, but also, sharing their wisdom and making sure that the elders and the young people walk side by side. And our utmost gratitude goes to Her Excellency, or rather to His Excellency, Jean-Leon Gandu Ilunga, the Ambassador of the Democratic Republic of the Congo to Ethiopia and to the AU, and His Excellency, Ambassador Tarek Ladeb, the Tunisia Ambassador to United Nations. We also would like to thank our Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture, Her Excellency, Madam Josefa Leonel Correa Sacco, and of course, Her Excellency, Madam Batabile Gamini, the Deputy President of the Pan-African Women's Organization. And really, in closing, allow me to really give thanks to the Office of the Youth Envoy team, who has worked tirelessly to organize these consultations and intergenerational dialogues. We thank all of you, and please apologize if I may miss anybody, Dr. Chiamaka, Rim, Sotfa, Nathan, Neil, Cindy, Ragda, and Amina. I would also like to thank the team from the Women, Gender and Development Directorate who led this intergenerational discussions with the team from the Youth Envoy. I thank each and every one of you, dear colleagues, and really we thank the production teams and especially led by Liang and all our interpreters and sign language interpretation. And I'm particularly excited about the sign language interpretation. It is really important that we integrate this and we make sure that this is part and parcel of the languages of the African Union. Thank you very much for this. And really, we thank all of you young people who mobilized using the hashtag Africa Youth Lead, reaching millions of youth across the continent and across the world. And really, as we march towards March, and as we march towards a generation equality, we believe that we will continue to work together and work together in furtherance of Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2030, and make sure that women and young women and progressive young men, and of course the young boys, are not left behind. Really, thank you very much. We appreciate all the support that we have received from each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Over to you, Zosie.
Thank you. Oh, am I back? Thank you so much. Thank you so much to you, Ms. Aisata and Ms. Victoria. Before you came on, the Vice President had a little bit of issues with her connection. Unfortunately, we are living in times now where we have to be digital people and these things happen. So I just want to check if she is back now before we can move on, because we really, really would like to hear from Her Excellency, the Vice President. I think all of us would love her words of wisdom. Her Excellency, Mrs. Rebecca Nyandeng de Mabio, is she? Okay, so she's not connected yet. I want to wait for her for a few more seconds, if you would please be patient, because we really, really do want to hear from her. Okay, they say they're connecting her. Thank you so much to everyone for your patience. And while we wait, I just want to thank everyone as well who is still tuning in. I hope you are still using our hashtags to make sure that our message is trending throughout the world. And I hope that you are tagging us on all our social media platforms as well. Is she connected yet? Please give indication. Okay, while they are connecting her, I think it is safe to move on to the next speaker. However, we will be back again to check with her once again, because like I said, I think we're all very excited to hear from her. We had Miss Aya Chebi before, and now we want to bring her back for the official handover of the manifesto, through virtual. Though it is virtual, it's a very important step in the submission of this manifesto for Secretary General for the General Equality Forum. So if we may have Miss Aya Chebi to come on and address us while we wait on Her Excellency the Vice President. Aya. Okay, so we seem to have lost Aya as well, who is trying to reconnect.
I'm here.
Again. Oh, thank you. Hi, Aya.
Sorry, the internet is unstable. But thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zosie. So I'm gonna try make this quick. But if we could have Ambassador Delphine O on the screen with Mama Tunzile, so I can make the handover, that would be great. Okay. Hi. So I was creative with COVID-19 because I'm working from home and I can't print. So I just made my own manifesto cover. And I just wanted to say to Ambassador Delphine, Ambassador at Large, and Secretary General to the Generation Equality Forum, Madame Pomzili Mlamu Nguka, UN Women Executive Director, Madame Beneta Diop, AU Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security, our mothers, our elders, our sisters, and our leaders and allies. I wanted to submit to you through this platform, the Africa Young Women Beijing Plus 25 Manifesto. And with this submission, I submit the voices, the aspiration, and the hopes and the demands of young women on our beloved continent. And we share now the responsibility and accountability across generations to make sure these demands of Generation Equality Forum are taken into account and acted on. And also just to say that this came from 1,500 youth who crafted these demands and over 30 partners and stakeholders who engage in the process. So with this handover, we have the full confidence that you will do what it takes to make sure our voices and agency are not ignored anymore, like the chairperson said, and that we are central to the highest level of decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Aya. Unfortunately, I wish I could be in the same room with you as we were just a year ago in the ICPD 25 conference in Nairobi. I remember we're sharing the same panel, and I'm very sorry I didn't have time to print the manifesto, but I have it here on my other computer. So it's as if you were digitally handing it over to me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, dear Pumzile. Hello, dear Binetta. Hello, everybody, excellencies, presidents, ministers, ambassadors. Thank you very much. I am the Secretary General for the Generation Equality Forum for the French government. I'm also an ambassador for women's rights. And I'm delighted to be talking to the African youth through your event, dear Aya, through the event of the African Union Youth Envoy. I have read the manifesto. It's going to be open on my laptop for a long time. I would like to congratulate all the 1,500 youth who have contributed, participated in the writing of this manifesto. I'm very impressed by the number of young women and youth who have participated from 42 countries. I'm impressed by the demands and the level of requirements that is put to us. Thank you very much. I am glad to see that we overlap with the 6 action coalitions that we have put forth within the context and the framework of the Generation Equality Forum, and especially 3 of these action coalitions: the Gender-Based Violence Action Coalition, the Economic Justice and Rights Action Coalition, and the Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights Action Coalition. And as you might know, France is one of the champions, together with Burkina Faso, of the Action Coalition on Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights. And we will very much take note of the recommendations, especially those on access to contraception, but also on comprehensive sexuality education. As you know, the Generation Equality Forum will be a milestone for women's rights. It will be the largest international gathering for women's rights of the past 25 years since the Beijing conference. It has been postponed from this year to next year. We do hope, despite the current pandemic, to be able to host a wide number of civil society, youth and activists and women's rights defenders. It will take place in Mexico at the end of March and then in Paris in June 2021. And part of it will be virtual because these are the current circumstances in which we live, and part of it will be virtual. And I would like to say a special word to my francophone fellow young women in French, just for a few seconds. Bonjour à toutes, bonjour à tous. Je suis ravie d'être avec vous. Je suis la secrétaire générale du Forum Génération Égalité et ambassadrice française pour les droits des femmes. Je voudrais dire un mot particulier aux jeunes femmes francophones en Afrique pour qu'elles rejoignent le mouvement Génération Égalité et qu'elles nous rejoignent à Paris en juin 2021 pour célébrer les 25 ans de la conférence de Pékin, mais aussi pour contribuer, nourrir et guider avec nous ce forum Génération Égalité pour les 5 à 10 prochaines années. Donc, nous vous invitons à venir nombreuses dans la mesure du possible à Paris en juin. And I will finish in English, back to English. As you know, the Generation Equality Forum is a unique enterprise that has never been done before, either by the UN system or by governments. First of all, because it's a shared governance, an inclusive governance in which we have UN Women, France, Mexico, but also civil society and the Beijing Plus 25 Youth Task Force, who are sitting at the decision-making table, making decisions with us in terms of designing the conference, designing the content, designing the action coalitions, determining what is needed for the next 5 to 10 years. It is truly intergenerational. I wish I could say I'm still part of the youth of young women, but I'm very, very impressed by my fellow young women, especially from Africa, to see how they have mobilized, gathered intelligence, and produced this manifesto to feed into our work. So thank you very much. I do hope to see you either physically or virtually next year in Mexico, and especially in Paris. And again, kudos for all the work. And thank you very much to the African Union Youth Envoy. Thank you.
Mama Pomzile.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aya. Excellencies, I'm going to stand on the protocol that has been observed. Thank you, Delphine, for those very impressive words that give the young people of Africa the context of generation equality and where we are. I'd like to also greet my sister, Mrs. Diop, the AU Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security. And I also greet all the ministers who are here and our moderator, Zozi. Greetings also to Victoria and everybody who is with us today. Thank you for this day. It is actually even more exciting that this day happens at a time when we are starting the 16 days of activism. This is the day that is the International Day to end violence against women. And I'm hoping that we will remember this day because of all of, all the reasons that this day is important in the gender calendar. I want to thank young people of Africa for having been present throughout the year to continue to mark 2020 as a year to celebrate women, as a year to reflect about the journey traveled and the journey to travel, and making sure that some of the critical moments of 2020 that we had planned are actually celebrated. But you also have been there to respond to the pandemic. You were able to bring together your energy to ensure that the response to COVID is youth and gender responsive, but also making sure that our life continues to address some of the issues that were there before COVID, were there during COVID, will be there after COVID. That resilience that you have showed is what has kept me alive in the true sense of the word, because the pandemic and the management of the response has been truly a gigantic job that we could not have managed to carry without your work. So Aya, kudos to you. Thank you for the consultations in the 42 countries, the interactive generation dialogue, which have produced this manifesto that we are presenting today. I can tell you, I agree with Delphine wholeheartedly that we will make sure that your words land at the right place and that they are part of the way forward and of the actions that we're going to take in generation equality. I'm also very happy that many of the areas of your demand also dovetail with the focus areas of generation equality. Let me also highlight the fact that on women's leadership, as it occurs, and women's leadership and feminist movements as reflected in generation equality needs Africa. It needs this energy that you have, and it also needs the strong integration of young people. So I think I'm lobbying you to really pay serious attention to the Action Coalition on leadership and feminist movement, because you bring the energy and the vibrancy that is needed to make sure that our feminist movements are driving the process. We also need Africa to be very present in the Women, Peace and Security Compact, because this is also the area in which Africa has been providing leadership and groundbreaking intervention. It is a great pleasure to me that within Generation Equality, we have been able to find a space that is both critical and strategic for the women, peace and security. Next year, we will, in the CSW of 2021, focus on women's leadership. So between now leading to CSW in 2021, it will be critical that we maintain the momentum so that we arrive at CSW with this energy. We arrive in Mexico with this energy, and we arrive in France with this energy. International Women's Day next year also is going to be focusing on women's leadership and our response to COVID. So all of these pieces together cannot be as vibrant as they need to be if we don't have a dedicated focus and engagement by young women. So I can assure you that the message and the call that we have in the manifesto will be heeded in all the processes that we are going to be taking forward. And I look forward to collaborating. The member states from Africa that are participating in Generation Equality are Malawi, who has joined the leadership of the SRHR Action Coalition, Kenya, who is in gender-based violence, South Africa, who is in economic justice. So there you have your allies that you can both push and demand action from. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mama Phumzile. Thank you so much. Mama Diop, you have the floor.
I think, thank you so much. And I stand again on the existing protocol, but I think everything has been said, and especially after listening to Ambassador Delphine Ho and my sister Phumzile Mlamonguka, I think you have Orange Africa today. Yes. I think that's the starting day of Orange Africa. I'm not saying orange the world, but we Orange Africa. So thank you for starting this magnifique discussion in our continent and the youth leading. And I think you are not going today to tell us we co-lead, but you are leading. And this is great, great momentum. So let me thank you, Aya, and thank all the partners, the WGDD, and your team that have organized this dialogue. I have been sitting and listening and get the all discussion and dialogue that have happened before. And welcome this manifesto, the African Young Women Beijing 25 Manifesto. I think this is a great, great document when you look at it, the FEM, the foster, enable, and mobilize. I think this is you mobilize, and we can see these are actions. And I'm sure that Ambassador Delphine have said it is going to lead in the Mexico process, but also in the Paris process, the whole generation equality. Africa always lead. And I think by making sure that you have the dialogue on each of the country, you know, the powerful dialogue with the young people. I'm sure that, you know, we will come, you have come with a strong manifesto, and this manifesto will lead in the, during the discussion which will happen in the generation equality. You know, the Africa we want, because coming back to our continent, we need many conversations that has like today, and to define the future with the young people. And we are proud that, you know, such a conversation is happening in the right context and leading to action and leading to impact. You know, I'm sure that everybody who have attended will agree that the discussion we had with such a manifesto will also, you know, we always say we need to reach meaningful. And when I look at the document, I see, wow, this is what the African youth want. And it is not just the young women, but also including the young men in our continent. So the various barazas that took place, and Naradzai alluded to all of them, I think that it has been a powerful process of making sure that it become inclusive. And I do agree today when Ambassador Job spoke on behalf of the chairperson that the African Union is on board. My sister Pumzile, we are on board. We are on board to, and Victoria have said it, all of us, we are on board on the, yes, we are on board and to make sure that our voice are heard and our faces are being seen, will be seen. And this great initiative for me, you know, which is cumbersome, but it is fruitful. And I want really to say to Aya, you know, thank you, thank you. I think this dialogue bridge the gap between the older generation and you know, this younger generation, but which is already leading. I will not call you the future generation. You know, we need to create such a space to have sometimes uncomfortable conversation. You know, it cannot be just all agreeing, but making sure that we look at the strength and the weakness of different generational cohorts and recognizing how to harness it. How do we move it forward? We don't stop there, that there are gaps. We have differences in the transformation path, but we need to be together. And that's the dialogue today that I could see. So I think the vision remain, our vision remain together. And I plead that the young people find more efficient energy saving, you know, scalable and effective way. And I think this is what is in the manifesto, to make sure that what we didn't do, you are going to make that difference. And I think that SRAG, Tete have said it, action, action, action. When we started in Beijing, Pumziles said, you know, 25 years, we were not where we are today. We were not. But today, we could see that we have made some milestone, not sufficient. But some of us who have gone into the path know that there are tremendous things that have happened at national level, at continental level, but we need to do more. We need to scale it up. We need to make sure that we implement better and we measure the progress. So I think that's, I believe that you young people, you are going to pave the way. And what I can assure you that my office, the Office of the Special Envoy, will continue to support your efforts, the African Union, and under the leadership of Musa Faki, the efforts, and such as the next intergenerational dialogue, we continue. We need more dialogue. We need more retreat to discuss frankly. We need this. And we continue to support with you and women. My sister Pumzile is very much supporting the AULIN, the Africa Women Leaders Network Intergenerational Retreat, that will be convened in the weeks to come by the President of Kenya. And I'm sure that we will be all there to have that such a retreat, even it is online, to continue the dialogue and the mentoring program, and making sure that all of us, we can pass the baton to all of you with our experience, with our weakness, but you can take action, action, action. I thank you.
Thank you, Mama Diop. Thank you, Mama Tumzile. Thank you, Ambassador O, for the strong commitment, the powerful words of wisdom. We stand on your shoulders. And yes, we will all meet for the Aulin retreats virtually in Nairobi. So see you there. Thank you for being here. Zosie, over to you.
May my camera please be disabled? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. My camera was disabled there. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and all our estimated guests and participants, it was really my honor and pleasure hosting this event, and I want to thank each and every one of you so much for your participation. I think most of you, like myself, have taken so much from this panel discussion. I mean, for one, that we do not have 108 years to wait for generation equality. I think most of you, like me, would like to see it happen in their lifetime. The second thing that I really took that I felt was important from this discussion was that it is so important to put young African women at the center and to make sure that we amplify their voices as frequently as possible and as loud as possible. I think it's also important to remember that we have to keep these intergenerational conversations happening. It's very important for us to pick up the baton from women who came before us because they've done such an amazing job at doing what they do. Not list. I think also looking at really how much, sorry, I just had a little connection problem there. Also looking at how much sometimes we're not going to be able to get the table. If we're not invited to the table, then it's very important for us to bring the table ourselves. So I want to thank you again to the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy for conveying this dialogue and the entire team behind the production and organization. I want to thank all the partners as well who've supported this process, from the Barazas, the Manifesto, not forgetting to go to the auyoutenvoy.org/manifesto to sign up your name to the African Young Women Manifesto and to continue showing your support. I want to thank all the speakers once again. Thank you to the translators and the sign language interpreter. And thank you so much for being with us in this past 2.5 hours. I hope that we continue to be inspired and to take action and to continue having these conversations and using the hashtag #AfricaYouthLead. Lastly, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and keep the conversation going on your social media platforms. Thank you and goodbye.